Hey folks, this is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast. I just want to remind you about our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. We have a Facebook page. We would appreciate it if you like and follow. Also, join our discussion group on Facebook called After the Shadows. We have a Twitter feed. Please follow us on Twitter. It can be found with @podcast_from. Follow us on Instagram at From the Shadows Podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Go to the search bar at YouTube and put From the Shadows Podcast, and please subscribe to that channel. We are also on the Odyssey Radio Network, and we can be found there at odyssey1.com. We're still on the traditional podcatchers that everybody loves to listen to us on. We get a lot of feedback, so please rate the podcast and communicate with whether you're on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. We're there, and we appreciate it when you leave comments for us. Well, that's all I have for you right now, folks, and thanks for being a part of the From the Shadows podcast family. So with that being said, let's get this episode started. Now I'm going to turn you over to your host, Shanegrove.
Okay, so Howler, since we talked about the beginning of life, you having your babies and stuff. Well, you got any good? I don't know. This is a terrible segue. You got any good people stories?
See, that's the problem I have. Sometimes I'm skeptic about the paranormal, as you guys know. That's kind of how I got involved.
Yeah.
Because I've been around a lot of dead folks. Okay, and back in the old days, I don't want to say a joke, but I used, dead people didn't bother me because they always stay where you put them. They don't say anything. Sometimes they stink, but they it's not their fault. What?
Wait a second. This is just this kind of sounds like babies. They stink. They sort of good.
No, because they'll crawl after you. They'll find you, but the dead dude will just lay there. I know I told you the dead guy in the trailer park. Didn't I? know I told you that was in August.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was driving down the highway one day. One of the common things is, back, especially for your aggressive uniform guys back in the old days, that you have any weapons in the car, or you had contraband, anything you ain't supposed to have, whatever. So I pulled this minivan over, and nothing special about it. It was like a Dodge Caravan. It wasn't the fancy minivan. It was the what was the Plymouth? It was like the Grand Caravan. It was just like a Plymouth Voyager van, but it was black, had 10 windows. I walked up in this middle of 2:33 in the morning. I don't remember what the deal was, but he was speeding, and it was early morning, and something about the guy I didn't like. When I say didn't like, something, you know what I mean? Something odd. And I think the deal is he had a suit on with no tie. And you just don't stop a lot of people at 2:30 in the morning with a suit on. You know what I mean? Especially without a tie.
Unless he's like a mafia hitman, right?
Yeah, maybe. I was before Sopranos, so I didn't. Anyway, so I asked this, do you have anything in the car? Where are you headed to? And he said, well, I'm headed here. And I said, okay. I said, you got anything in the car you ain't supposed to have? And he said, like what? And I said, well, what's the only thing in the car you're worried about? And he goes, well, I got a dead guy back there.
That's it?
Yeah. So I said,
well, was he worried?
Well, and he worked at a funeral home, and they were transported. This guy had passed away in one part of the state, and they had paid to, the family had paid to bring him back, back home. And instead of taking a hearse, I thought they only hauled bodies in hearses, except for, I told you the Super Dave Hawaii story, I think, didn't I, about the trash can and the ashes?
No, we didn't hear that.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, this guy was just a funeral home, and I think he led me down that path. He was an older guy, and he realized it was going to spook me, you know what I mean, when there's a dead guy in the back.
Yes.
But I know I told you about wrecking an 18-wheeler with Dave, right? Super Dave?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's old boy Dave. He's his biggest brother, oldest brother was big Catholic family. I think there were 6 boys and 1 girl. Anyhow, The oldest one was a welder, and he was welding underwater in Hawaii, working on something, and when I say with diving, like a diving bell with big helmet and an air supply, so it was like a scuba deal. It was a big diving bell. Oh man, Jane, I can't believe I'm gonna tell you the story. So
never heard this story.
So just to tell you how just wild some of these families are. Well, they check on him. Let's check on me periodically. They check on them periodically down there. I guess when they're diving, they have X amount of 30-minute checks or 20-minute checks when they radio down there. And if they don't radio back, one of the other guys checks on them or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
This guy had worked on like oil wells, just all kinds. He just dived all around. So, needless to say, he had passed away down there in his diving suit. And I don't think it was, because I guess they can get electrocuted down there. There's all kinds of shit that can kill you, I guess, if you're down in the wall 300 feet for a couple hours. But I think it was just a simple heart attack, because he lived a hard life, good drinker, smoker, single man. So, which led Dave's family, Dave's dad, got the family around and said, hey, we're going to have to go out to Hawaii and collect your brother. So
that's like a great family meeting. Hey, everybody, gather around.
I'm trying to, this is the problem when I tell some of these stories. First of all, I'm trying not to cuss because I know I try to run a clean show, and it's all I can do sometimes to keep it on the track because I can wreck a train as easy as anybody. And so he gets them all, and I'm trying not to rail on. So some of these guys are near to wells, and part of the story, it's funnier when you're in my shoes watching it because I know a lot of people and how this good, wholesome Christian couple can, I always heard raising kids was like rolling dice, right? You don't know what you're going to get. So a couple of these kids turned out great, and a couple of them have just hit one personal pothole after another, and you don't know why, right? Because they came from the same mom and dad, they lived in the same house, they ate the same food, they went to the same school, went to the same church. How come some of them are nefarious and some of them aren't? You don't know.
Amen.
So a few of them do not have personal resources to get themselves out to Hawaii to have this little funeral / wake. So this old man has got to, 60 some years old, almost 70. He's got to, gather them all around and say, we're all going, your brother's passed away, we're all going to Hawaii. So they flew out to Hawaii, and dad's the only one that's got any money or credit card or anything. So he's rented this van to shuffle them all around. So the first thing they do is they got to go down there and identify the body or collect the body or do whatever body stuff you do when you do. And they said, okay, well, we need to bring him over to the funeral home. What do y'all, what's your plans with him? He said, we're going to have him cremated. Okay. I think they were at the morgue and they needed to get him to the funeral home. And they said, okay, well, we need to transport him. And Dad says, okay, how do we transport him, or who do we call? Or we so the hospital can do it by ambulance. We don't like to because it wastes an ambulance, ties an ambulance up to transport. Normally, you do the funeral home. So he calls the funeral home and says, hey, my son passed away. We need to get him over there. And I think they quoted him, I don't know, $200 or $300 to transfer because he's good old German. He's worried about what everything costs. How much it's going to cost? $300. Whoa. How far away is it? He says, well, it's just 10 blocks or whatever. No, we'll bring him. So he takes that minivan back to the hotel and pulls all them seats out. Drives back to the morgue and says, load him up. So these old boys got a ride with their dead brother because they lost their seats, right? They took the seats out at the hotel, but they got to go with Dad to pick up their brother, so they throw him in the body bag in the back, and they got to kind of sit sideways or whatever with him. So they go down to the funeral home. Well, I wish I felt better. I'm sick. So I'll tell you what it reminds me of when you watch that Osama bin Laden Zero Dark 30 or whatever, and these guys got to throw his body in the chopper, and somebody's got to sit on him or whatever. It's probably similar to that, But anyway, so they're in they're in the rental van taking their dead brother, deceased brother, and they say the old man was just ragging him the whole time, right? About he can't believe these kids didn't, turn out better or do better. I mean, you just imagine. How could you imagine riding around with your parents with a dead sibling? You know what I mean? My old man would be going nuts, so I couldn't even imagine what the old man was like, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
By the end of the ride, you'd be going, why couldn't it have been me? And just to get out of it. So they get down to this funeral home, and then I don't know if you guys ever been to a funeral home like that. So they get the little card out that says, what kind of services you want, what do you, what kind of casket, what kind of this, that. The old man would say, we're just making, he lived the life of bachelor, touring around and doing whatever he wanted to do. He's got friends scattered all over, but the last few years he really loved Hawaii. He's got a girl here. We're just going to have a simple ceremony and scatter him out. Okay, so you just want him cremated? Yep, cremated. So they said come back tomorrow at 6 or Tuesday at 4, whatever the time they had. So these guys all went. I don't remember what they did. They went up to the Dole Pineapple Plantation and went sea fishing or something. But they had to come back the next day to collect the brother, either the next day or the third.
All I can think about is that scene in The Big Lebowski. Remember that one?
Yeah. So that's exactly what this is about. Like, so they get back, and they said, "Well, what urn do you want?" The old man says, "Urn." Yeah, they started, 300 and go all the way up to 3,000 or whatever. They got ornate urns, porcelain urns, plastic urns, brass, gold-plated urns, whatever urn you want. And they said the old man leaned up, and you guys are watching me, but the audience ain't. He leans up. The funeral home director had a trash can there with a black plastic liner in it. He said the old man reached up, pulled that liner out of the trash can and popped it, plop. Says, put him in this, he'll be fine.
Wow.
And they took him back. They took him out to a pier and shook him out and went back fishing. Or swimming, surfing, or whatever they're doing. I mean, what else do you do, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I don't even know. I don't even know how we segued in that one. That wasn't the one I was going to tell you. But yeah. So anyway, I was working one night, and so the sheriff called and said, "Hey, in the pickup, the sheriff's office I worked with at that time had of all things, a 3/4 ton." Another big block Chevy pickup that sat behind the jail, had a camper top on, a real nice low mileage pickup. It was for special things, like they'd launch boats with it or whatever. So he called me, said, get in that pickup truck and meet me out here at so-and-so's farm. So I get in this truck, and I don't even know why he told me. Maybe because I didn't have a cop car. It doesn't matter. So I get down this farm, and what it is, this old guy went out bow hunting and came back. So there were some volunteer firemen, and the sheriff was there, and a couple other deputies or whatever, and we're going to walk this farm. This was the first dead person I was around in the wild environment, right? And he had went out bow hunting, and he was sitting at the bottom of his tree, and he's 70-some years old, had a heart attack and died. But me and this other deputy was walking around, and I mean, just go out on a 400-acre farm in big woods and try to find a dead guy. It's a lot harder than it sounds. I don't care how many firemen you bring. And I shined my flashlight over there, and the eyes shine back. Looked like, how you see deer eyes or coon eyes or possum eyes on the side of the road or dog eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And I shine a light down and bring it back, and it wasn't, usually if you're shining a deer or something, they'll move. That's the third or fourth time it would move. I told this to the deputy with me. I said, let's walk over. And she goes, you serious? I said, yeah, I think that's him. I mean, what else is it? And sure enough, this old boy was looking right at us, and we were shining our light in his eyes from, 150 yards or whatever. These big old rechargeable flashlights. His eyes would shine right back at us, just like in the headlights or something. Isn't that spooky?
Yeah,
yes, that is.
It is.
I thought it was spooky. I don't know. But then again, didn't argue with you. Don't go nowhere. That's why we used to joke all the time. Well, they'll just be just as dead when we get there, right? Maybe not. I don't know. This crazy old sheriff I used to work for, he was big in the, not big in it. You'd have to go to autopsies. So when you had people that died mysteriously or murdered or whatever. So anyway, they was this crazy ass. These old boys went out on the river, and they were all criminals. 3 of them were all criminals, and one of them come up missing. Ultimately, we drug him out of the river, drowned. Okay, and for whatever reason, the sheriff was demanding an autopsy because he was worried about one of the other 3 because they were all convicts, and I think 2 of the 3 were on parole. And he was what he really wanted to do is put a case on everybody. So you know what I mean? If somebody got killed, even though you killed a criminal, we're going to put a case. So he tells me, "Hey, you're going to this autopsy with me," and I'm not, I'm just not into that CSI stuff that much. But I've been to several, so and maybe that's why he'd bring me because I really wasn't, So we go up there, and I don't know if you guys ever been to an autopsy or not, but it's just like Hollywood presumes, cut this guy's head off. Measures brain. They cut the top of your head. But one of the things they do is they cut this sternum and pull your, they check your heart and they check all this stuff, right, to see. In order to get to it, they cut your sternum with essentially a little saw.
And then they use a spreader.
Yes, and they spread it apart. They take his stuff out. And anyway, this whole time, on the way there and then the way after, the sheriff was a big old boy. He liked to eat. He said, "Hey, when we get done with this," he said, "it's a tradition. It's my first autopsy. We're going to go Mizzou barbecue. It's over by the university, by Missouri, University of Missouri, Columbia. We're going to go to Mizzou barbecue and eat some ribs." And I said, "Oh, come on." I said, "No, we're going to go get some ribs." And this old boy spread this guy, cut him open with that saw. They take that rib spreader and spread him open. They take his heart out. They weigh all this stuff. There's just all the stuff that goes with it, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the end, they put them all back together. Or, they fairly good. I never forget, we walked out. We had big old Chevy Caprice. They were Caprice cop cars back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I'm driving. He always had me drive. And I started to get on the highway. He goes, "No, I'm serious. Go down the business loop. We're going to go over and get some ribs." And I said, "Oh, come on." And he said, "Hey, So we went in this place and got, I don't know if we got 2 full racks or whatever rib special we got, 3 sides, some beans and baked potatoes and all this shit, whatever, just loaded up like hogs at a trough." And I remember him looking over at me, eating the rib. And he said, "What?" I mean, we just left the autopsy, for Christ's sake. This, you know what I mean? I think about this. I should have been on an HBO movie. I should be on like a TV show or something, it's almost like this is scripted. And he said, "I just did you a favor. You don't understand." He's eating this rib. "You don't understand. I did you a favor." And I said, "What do you mean? You did me a favor with what?" And he goes, "I've programmed you now to get hungry at an autopsy." And I said, "What the hell's that?" And he goes, "Your mind is racing right now, whether you realize it or not, because that's a traumatic thing to go through. It's your first time." And he said, "Now your mind is going to correlate these ribs with that autopsy. So from now on, when you're around a body, you're going to get hungry, and you're going to think about this."
Oh my God. Okay, on that note.
Hold on. And you know what's crazy? This is what's crazy. He's right on the money. Every other thing I did where we had fresh dead people, we did dead people, homicide investigation or the autopsy or anything else, I was always hungry. So I don't know how he knew that or how, you know what I mean? You just can't tell that because only certain people are sick enough that go, "What are we going to do after this? Are we going back to the station? Whatever." You say, "Well, I'm ready to go eat." Johnny.
I need some biscuits. I need some biscuits and gravy.
Yeah, and they'd be like, "Oh, come on." And that's it. You just weren't trained properly. Had you been trained correctly, this wouldn't spook you no more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.